Okay, we are in Mark 10, and thank you all for your patience. Last week, I did not know we were going to have a special service until everybody else found out. So I was like, okay. I thought we're never going to finish chapter 10. I got real discouraged and everything. We are going to finish chapter 10 and hopefully maybe at least do the intro of Mark 11. Okay, so we're in Mark. After we finish Mark, I'm just going to give you a preview of what's coming up. Remember how we didn't quite finish our Queens, Mothers, and Warriors study? So we're going to do Esther, but I just want everyone to know there's not going to be any of that such a time as this stuff. It's going to be a whole different principle, whole different theme that we're working on. So don't go like, oh, I already know. It's going to be a totally different thing. Because I myself was like, oh, if I hear one more person go, I will puke. But I found this study, and I'm still working on it. And it was coming from a different angle. And I was like, okay, something fresh. Yeah. So we'll go that way. And now when that happens, who knows? Because this is summer and we tend to get traveling groups and things in the summer. And so and to be honest with you, a lot of times the leadership doesn't know until like the day of. So be prepared that there might be some stops along our journey. Okay. Now we stopped at Mark 10:31. I actually made note of it. I was so proud of myself for such a simple thing. But we stopped there. So I'm going to begin reading, and I'm just going to do the chunk of verses 32 through 34 for right now. And again, Mark 10. And they were in the way going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus went before them, and they were amazed. And as they followed, they were afraid. And he took again the 12 and began to tell them what things should happen unto him, saying, behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man shall be delivered unto the chief priests and unto the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death, and shall deliver him to the Gentiles. And they shall mock him, and shall scourge him, and shall spit upon him, and shall kill him. And the third day he shall rise again. So he is full on telling them exactly this is what's going to happen. Maybe not exactly when and how, but these things all did come true. He was scourged, he was spat upon. But when I read it, I was like, why were they afraid? Because before he even said that stuff, it says, and as they followed, they were afraid. I was like, why would they be afraid? Well, I don't know if they were remembering this is not the afraid stuff was before verse 33 where he told them exactly what they're going to do to him. So it's like, so why would they be afraid? But then maybe this is my opinion, maybe they were remembering what he had told them before, because this is not the first time he's told them this. In the book of Mark alone, let's see, we have it, that's a hair, in Mark 8 verse 31. Let's go to Mark 8 verse 31. And he said, and he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of the elders and of the chief priests and scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. So maybe they were recalling this. I don't know, because they seem to be kind of forgetful. I can't say anything. I'm so forgetful. But one scholar noted that there was a difference in Jesus's carrying himself down the road. So if you look back in Mark 10 and verse 32, and they were in the way going up to Jerusalem, and Jesus went before them. That's different. Maybe that's what's throwing them off. He's going before them. He always went among them. They visited as they walked. He's going before them. He's ahead of them. How far ahead? I don't know. But enough that I think that caused he's different than he usually is. I don't know if he was more somber or whatever, but we don't know. It says they were amazed And as they followed, they were afraid. Now, if they did remember, he had already said this stuff about what's going to happen to him. They could be going, uh-oh, we're heading to Jerusalem, and that's exactly where those people hang out that he said are going to betray him and kill him. So they could be nervous about that. They could be remembering he said that they're going to reject him, and then, hey, I'm in his company. Is something going to happen to me too? We're human. We get scared. I don't know what they were afraid of, but it just made me stop and ponder for a minute. Maybe it didn't for you, and I'm having a weird moment, but it did make me ponder, like, what? Anyway, so now we're going to go into the chunk of verses 35 through 45. And just so you know, you don't have to turn here, but just so you know, and online folk, this can also be found in Matthew 20. I need a drink if we're going to read that many. I knew I should put more water in there. If we're going to do that many verses. Okay, so 35 through 45. I don't think there's any words I'll butcher, but let's see. It's a fun game. Okay. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, come unto him, saying, Master, we would that thou shouldest do for us whatsoever we shall desire. Now, let's play the stop and figure out what James and John were talking about. So this is not James, that's the half brother of Christ, because obviously he is the brother of John, okay, son of Zebedee. This is not John the Baptist. This is John the Apostle, the beloved. Okay, just so we get all our Johns and Jameses straight here. It's real fun to straighten out all the Marys. Real fun. Okay. Verse 36. And he said unto them, What would ye that I should do for you? No, I'm going to go back. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came unto him, saying, Master, we would that thou shouldest do for us whatsoever we shall desire. And he said unto them, What would ye that I should do for you? I'm really hoping there's a cultural thing there. Because for me, that's like, who do you think you are? I think there's a little bit of a cultural thing there. But there is still a selfish thing here. I mean, he just told him, I'm going to be dead. I'm going to get killed. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be fun. And then I'll rise again. And they're like, yeah. So, hey, we have something we want to ask you. I mean, it's like, I don't know how much time happened between those verses, but it doesn't seem a whole lot. So, yeah, it's just like, okay. So, anyway, I could be misinterpreting because of cultural, but I don't think so. I think they're being a little selfish here. Verse 37. They said unto him, Grant unto us that we may sit, one on thy right hand and the other on thy left hand in thy glory. So we all get that the right hand would be the highest spot. The second spot would be the left hand. They're asking for the two highest spots. But Jesus said unto them, Ye know not what you ask. Can you drink of the cup that I drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? And they said unto him, We can. And Jesus said unto them, Ye shall indeed drink of the cup that I drink of, and with the baptism that I am baptized withal shall ye be baptized. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be much displeased with James and John. Go figure. Yeah. But Jesus called them to him and saith unto him, Ye know that they which are accounted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so shall it not be among you. But whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister. And whosoever you will be the chiefest shall be servant of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. So there's some vocab we need to go over in that section, because how we use some of these words today is not what they are saying. But first, let's talk about this James and John stuff. Now, let's go to Matthew 20:20. Gives us a little more detail about this incident. Matthew 20:20. Then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. It's his mom. It's their mom. And he said unto her, What wilt thou? She saith unto him, Grant that these my two sons may sit, the one on thy right hand and the other on the left, in thy kingdom. And again, he's like, You have no clue what you're asking. So she is doing this. Now, I don't think that means Mark miswrote. I think they also asked on their own too, probably more than once. Now, here's some things we need to know about their mom. I would like to think she regretted this. And I have a feeling she did, because she was at the crucifixion. She witnessed the crucifixion. She has mentioned that she was at the crucifixion. Made me wonder if she's having like a cringe moment. Like, I can't believe I asked for my sons to go through this. Like the worst case of stage mom ever, right? So she witnessed that. Praise God, she got to witness the empty tomb too. She was one of the women that went with Mary Magdalene. And so she saw that. I'm hoping this gave her hope. I think it did. And we have our cringe moments, so I can't say, I can't, it blows my mind that you would ask for your sons to be in a position. But I'm a different personality, obviously in my family status, we don't care, about status. So I guess maybe that's just, it was important to her. I don't think it was later. I think she was a changed woman. I really do. But what they were asking, now we're allowed to ask God for things, but remember, he knows our hearts and he knows what's going on there. And if we look, this is the example of how not to ask for things. Because to ask things of God, you first need to have a connection with God, right? So let's turn to Psalm 37. That's Old Testament. Old Testament. Psalm 37. Forgot where I was going. Okay. Thankfully, it's a short one. Okay, Psalm 37. Verse 4. Sorry about that, folks. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. So is God first? Do you find delight in God? Again, it's not wrong to ask. He said, ask and you shall receive, stuff like that. But you don't want to ask amiss. Okay. Now, the other James, not this James, but the other James who penned the book of James, who was also Jesus's what? Half brother. He talked about that. And he said, in James 4, you don't have to turn there if you don't want to. We're just going to be there for a second or two. And James 4, flip. 15, 16. Sorry, I'm going by my page numbers. James 4, verses 2 and 3. And I'm going slowly. It says, Ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not because ye ask not. Ye ask and receive not. Now he's like, but on the other hand, ye ask and receive not because you ask amiss, that you may consume it upon your lust. They probably would have consumed that glory, that status on their lust. And I mean, I still don't understand this request. This is going to be an eternity. I mean, I'm glad they're thinking of eternal things, but what good would it do them here on the earth right now? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, don't ask amiss. I've done that before in my life. And looking back, I was like, well, I obviously asked amiss. And how do we ask amiss? That can be, we ask with the wrong motive. Maybe you've got iniquity in your heart that you need to clean up. You don't clean it up, but you confess it to the Lord. There's different things. Okay, so back to Mark in chapter 10. The thing is, these guys are going to get to drink from the cup. And this James, the James in Mark 10, the James that's the son of Zebedee, he's going to be the very first one to be martyred. The very first one to be martyred. We learn about that in Acts 12, but you don't have to turn there, okay? So James is going to be the first one to be martyred. John would not be martyred, but not for lack of trying, okay? Now, the being boiled in a vat of oil is using external sources, and some say it's reliable, but since it's not from the Word of God, I don't spend much time there. There's the tradition that John was boiled in a vat of oil and it couldn't kill him. And then they said, okay, get out of here, get to Pathos. They exiled him. But again, many scholars say that was a reliable external source that's outside of the Bible. And I'm sure it was, but I just don't see the need to go there if I don't know for sure. But we do know God could have protected him for anything. Now, John lived and died a natural life. I believe he lived to be the oldest, and I think he got to be quite elderly, especially for that time period. And I have a theory about why he was kept alive for so long. And remember, there's a time when what's going to happen to him? And Jesus said, don't you worry about what happens to him. He's got something else. I think this John was kept alive for a long time to be the eyewitness that could go against the false teachings that started up in the first century. So he could, oh, you think that? Really? I was there. So, like that. So and then he wrote those accounts. And of course he wrote, God used him to pen the book of Revelation. So yeah, they asked amiss, and Matthew 20 tells us a little bit more about the right hand and left hand. You don't have to turn there, but in Matthew 20:23, Jesus explains that God the Father is preparing those places, those spots. That's why he says it's not mine to give. And then I was like, who would they be? And then I started wondering, would it be Elijah and Moses? Because those are the two on the general. Now I'm all curious. Matthew 20:23. So I don't know about who those spots would be for. I need to do more studying on that. So now let's go back to the request. So sadly, we all make mistakes because we're human. But this does make a little crack it says they are much displeased. Well, I would be too. Hey, we're doing the same work as you. What is wrong with you? Why can't we? And so if they're much displeased, and obviously there was a small crack in unity at this time. It also is very telling, in my opinion, that they're asking, their mom and them asking for these positions tells me it's evidence of they don't fully grasp the nature of who Jesus is. And that's fair, I'm sure I would have made so many more mistakes if I had been in that time period. Okay. They're trying to, I don't know. It's like they're trying to like lord it over to other people like, hey, we're better. I don't know. But we're not to be like the world works, and everything he says and the rest of that chunk up to verse 45 is so opposite of how the world works. The world works in like you gain power and people serve you and you rule over them. But Jesus is like, no, I'm the Son of Man. In other words, like, can you top that? Anybody out there? You more than that? I mean, he doesn't say that like that. I'm saying it like that. Jesus won't, because he's good and perfect. But he's like, I'm the Son of Man, and I came to minister. Now, minister in our word, we use it more to mean, we think of pastor, and it's okay because that's how it's used. But it's also a verb. And when it's used as a noun, there it's um decanos before we got the word deacon, right? So the minister as a noun is a servant. Yes, it's a minister like we think, but there's more serving going than being in the pulpit and preaching and being, wow. I gotta tell you, the thing about celebrity pastors we have nowadays makes me sick. Those two words should never be together. A celebrity pastor, that's the absolute opposite of the word pastor. There's some other terms that I say, I don't want to offend. I don't know who's watching online, so I don't want to offend folk. But there's other words that people use in today's Christendom that I'm like, those two words together make absolutely no sense. Study what they mean. Okay. But people just throwing them out there. But celebrity pastor is the very opposite, because a celebrity doesn't minister to other people, doesn't serve other people, but a pastor is a servant. And so, um, these if you study some, like the, what's his name, David Platt, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started on that one. Okay. But absolutely does no ministering to that church. He does sermons that are doctrinally questionable, has these catchy illustrations, brings props up there, but is not available for counsel, not available to serve his people. And when it was brought to him that there was inappropriate behavior, he covered it up. Too bad for you, victim. That's not a pastor. That is a wolf in sheep's clothing in the flock. So this thing is hitting me hard right now, because I've been doing some studying on these people in our, and Jason Little is another one. Yeah, I'm saying their names. J.D. Greer. If you follow any of their teachings, please stop. They are evil in disguise, full on. They have done very horrible things. Okay, I knew I'd get on a soapbox. I told myself not to. I wouldn't know about all the ones because I don't know who's all on there, and I don't know if these guys are on there. They're mostly on like on YouTube. Mhm. David Jeremiah seems to be pretty doctrinally sound. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So any TV show or TV channel, I shouldn't say show, channel, and you there's like good and not good mixed in. It's like buying something from christianbook.com. There's great stuff in there and there's stuff that's not. You just have to be real discerning. Yeah. So I'm not one of those, don't watch any of this, and don't watch, because like one of Jeff's favorite authors, whom we name our son Grant after, Grant Jeffrey, was a guest on TBN like constantly, and he's doctrinally sound. So it's like I don't want to say never watch this, never watch that, and everybody's got to be discerning for themselves. But there are a few names out there I do want to say please don't watch, there, because they don't operate under a channel or a network, and they are doing very deceitful things. So I should have said stop soapboxing. Anyway, so whoever desires to be great among you, this is what Jesus starts doing with them. And boy, how humbling this is, because I was reading this, I was like, why would any of us think we're hot stuff when here's Jesus, the only man that can be hot stuff. I mean, and he's not using it. He's he's ministering he's serving other people. Later we see he washes their feet. Just it's just wow, the modeling of it. So it's very opposite of the world. He says in verse he's saying in 44, so whosoever you will be the chiefest, the biggest, you're going to be the servant of all. And he said, because even I, and he says it so much nicer than I'd be, he's like, for even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but for me to minister to you. So when we study this word minister, we aren't surprised because we are blessed with pastors that are actually ministers and servants in our church family. But I don't think I've ever been in a church where a pastor was not that way. Praise God. But for those online folk, if your pastor is not approachable for you, like you cannot ask him for counsel or a question, and when you try to approach him, like his bodyguards prevent you from seeing him, that's not of scripture. Now, having a team like we do of safeties, and that's not really for our pastor, that's for the whole property. Okay. And if you notice, they don't stand right next to him. And like when people come up to him, they block him off. So some of these churches I've been watching, because they've had wolves come in, these pastors come in. I mean, these were churches that were grounded. These were churches that were running like a New Testament church should. And they had the mistake of getting a new pastor that they didn't vet enough or lied to them and deceived them. And everything changed. And then these congregation members are not allowed to talk to their pastor. They can't email them. They can't call them. What? So if you guys out online, if you're in a church where you are not able to have access to your pastor, I think maybe you might want to maybe examine your church just a little bit. Pray over it, because I'm not all wise and all knowing. But that doesn't sound right to me. So okay, so now we're going to get to healing. So now we're in verses 46 through 52. Okay, let me do that chunk. And they came to Jericho, and as he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great number, I knew I'd say something wrong, number of people, blind is it Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, whatever, sat by the highway side begging. So that is really all they were able to do to support themselves back then. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And many charged him that he should hold his peace. But he cried the more a great deal, Thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. And they called the blind man, saying unto him, Be of good comfort, rise, he calleth thee. Is that the same ones that just told him to shut up? I don't know. Okay. And 50. And he, casting away his garment, rose and came to Jesus. He hasn't been healed yet. He's blind, and he's going to Jesus. What faith? What faith? And this also verse, I know I should have finished reading the chunk, but I love this verse because this shows come as you are. Come as you are to Jesus. He'll do the healing. He'll do the cleaning up. And Jesus answered and said unto him, What wilt thou that I should do unto thee? Well, that sounds familiar. Didn't he just say that to James and John? The blind man said unto him, Lord, that I might receive my sight. And Jesus said unto him, Go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way. So he didn't just we see some examples of healing, and they're like, I'm healed, and they take off running. Now some go off running to go tell people about Jesus, and then like the leper that came back to say thank you, that was good. But this guy, it sounds like he's following Jesus in the way. How long he followed them, I don't know. But I'm amazed by this blind man because, well, I know I'm going to get ahead of myself. So let me follow my notes. I'm so bad about getting ahead of myself. See, I forgot to say this. I come back to this. Okay. So in Matthew, we learned that in this story, there's more than one person that's blind, but Bartimaeus is the one that's very vocal and the one that's persistent. And he was, let's see. He's saying, Jesus, have mercy on me. And he could be saying, I don't know. He didn't say heal me. I'm sure that's what he meant, but he said have mercy on me. So I like that. But look, this is also showing um fulfilling of scripture. Look at Isaiah in the Old Testament. Isaiah 35. Isaiah 35. Did you get there before I do? Let me know. 35:5. Do you want to read it? Yeah. The eyes of the blind shall be opened. So we're seeing the fulfillment of scripture right there from Old Testament. I like seeing Old Testament and New Testament jive because it does. And also because don't I can't fault like any teachers in my past, but for some reason growing up, I had such a separation of the two testaments in my head, you know? And then I started realizing, then when I was a young adult and after I went cuckoo cuckoo and then I got back with the Lord, I had a Sunday school teacher who said, "Oh, I love the Old Testament because there's Jesus all in it." I was like, "What?" And so I realized I had been separating these two testaments and it's ridiculous. They're together. They go together. But anyway, so he heals him. I I want to tell you a little bit about Jericho here in a minute, but first let me just say that the blind man knew what he needed was mercy. And he didn't think God owed him. You should heal me. You should give me mercy. What a contrast to what the boys were asking and their mom of we want status and glory. And he's just like, have mercy on me. Um, we need to have mercy. And it's not just the blind men, it's all of us. But what amazed me, and I'm sorry if you think this is corny, this is just what struck me, is that a blind man, he says, son of David. What is it? He said, son of David. And he said it more than once. And I thought, wow, so this blind dude can see Jesus for who he is, and amongst all these sighted people who aren't. He's saying son of David. How did he know his son of David? But obviously he had heard about him because it said in verse 47, and when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, that's when he starts making a commotion. So in my mind, this is just my opinion, it signifies to me that I think this Bartimaeus recognized Jesus as the Son of God, not just the Son of David. You know, I could be wrong. So now the Jericho that's mentioned here, we always think Battle of Jericho, Jericho. We always think the Old Testament. So the Old Testament Jericho and the New Testament Jericho, fun fact, are not the same location. I thought they were. They're slightly off, but they're not the exact location. Hey, Jessica gets points. Yes, it's so good. So the Jericho of Jesus' day was about 5 miles west of Jordan, like the Jordan River, not Jordan, the modern day country. And 15 miles northeast of Jerusalem, where Herod the Great and his successors built a lavish winter palace. Remember, we talked about this winter palace when we did like Amos and Obadiah, because they're hiding up in there, like judgment's going to find you, even in I don't think God had said it like that, but the judgment found them even though in this palace. Herod was known for architecture and building one. The Herod that was in reign when Jesus was born, I believe, was the big architecture dude, architect and engineering. But anyway, so they're in that area, and the Old Testament Jericho is about 1 mile north of that. So they're not like, I'll show the online book. So here's like Old Testament Jericho and I mean, it's like smidgen. But I just thought it was interesting. It's not the exact same location, and like you said, Smartest. That's right. Okay. Now, again, remember one Bible scholar I told you about, he's talking about the paradoxes in this chapter. Everything Jesus said is opposite of how the world works. And we have to remember that. And even in our daily lives, sometimes um, I had an incident that legally I could have been in the right to do whatever I wanted, but morally, I mean, I don't even care about, I don't really want to say morally. Spiritually, I thought, but what does that mean eternally? If I tarnish my testimony a smidgen, and these people don't know I'm a Christian, but what if they somehow find out or whatever? And the thing is, they don't have, I know I'm a Christian, you know. So I bought a new computer, not new, refurbished, a Mac Mini, and I got a good deal on it. And I was using the platform Back Market because they refurbish instead of let electronics go in the landfills. So I feel very strongly about that. So I like them and they have warranties and whatever. So I got this Mac Mini, but when it came with two iPhone 16s. I was like, I did not order those. And if you look up the Free Trade Commission, you're allowed to keep any unsolicited merchandise that's sent to you. I didn't order it, I didn't pay for it, but they sent it to me on their mistake. So legally, I can keep them. I wasn't really planning to at first. And so I contacted Back Market and I was like, hey, I got these. Back Market was like, oh, we appreciate your honesty so much. The seller, though, so Back Market is like eBay. eBay has its sellers, right? And eBay is a platform. So Back Market is a platform. That's who I'm dealing with, but they have different sellers. Well, the seller never said boo. Said, okay, here's, have her send them back. Oh, so I ain't paying to send them back. It's your mistake. Okay, well, here's a prepaid load. We'll send them back in the in the stuff that it came in. It's already paid for. It's like I showed them. Look, I'm telling y'all sent this with no invoice, no packaging, no blah blah. It came. And I'm like, okay, well, here's a prepaid label. And he's not even talking to me. It's just Back Market saying, okay, they sent a prepaid label. I was like, did they have anything else to say to me? And they're like, no. I was like, so I'm really disappointed that there was no like, hey, thanks and so sorry for the inconvenience that you're going through and blah blah blah. And they said, I said, and maybe even keep one or something, you know. And he said, the Back Market said, well, actually, um, yeah, we were kind of disappointed with that too, because we would think as a gesture, you know, to do that. I said, does that seller know I have the right to keep them? He goes, no, I don't know. And technically you do, but we're going to ask you not to. But if you do, we have to honor it. I said, all right, I'll let you know. And I thought about it for a couple of days. And then I'm like finding all these, oh, I could use it for this. I'm justifying. You weren't even looking for an iPhone. You're an Android girl. But I do have a Mac computer desktop, and syncing up stuff I do for work would be helpful, right? No, you do it already through Google, idiot. So you don't need these iPhones. You know, I was like, justifying. And I thought, but I can make good films and videos for the drama ministry. And I mean, literally had all, I was telling Raphael, Pastor Raphael, I had all these justifications going. Yeah. Yeah. Guess what? Did a little research. The camera in this phone is better, if the same, if not better than the iPhone 16. Because a lot of times iPhone is using whose phones, whose cameras? Samsung's. Did you know that? So I knew this for some years because my son, my eldest son, is a hater of Apple, like nobody's business, okay? Because they're a bully company and they're elitist. But I do like their desktops. I was planning on buying a PC, but all the PCs were out of my price range, and this Mac Mini came up at a deal that I couldn't pass, and the performance was going to be what I needed, and I'm familiar with Mac, so I did go ahead and get it. But I was like, I kind of wanted at least a, I don't know, a pat on the back, and I thought, well, what an idiot! I'm wanting to be rewarded for being good. And what does this have to do with eternity? Yeah, I could keep these iPhones, but it'd be a rigmarole because most likely the seller would lock them out. And then you can get around that, by the way. And I was going to, I had all my things set up. I love technology stuff. And so I thought, yeah, I could do that. Of course, Reese was like, I want one. I'm like, yeah, you do. But and then I thought, well, I don't want to ruin my relationship with Back Market. So I asked Back Market, if I keep these, what does that do to your relationship with the seller? And what does that do with your relationship with me? And they kind of reiterated the same thing, that they legally can't force me to do anything, but they would hope I would not keep them and stuff. So I sent them back. And huh? I should have. I wasn't real sure if I was going to have Christianly behavior. So anyway, but the thing is, and I had every justification. I looked up on Google that seller because they have a physical store in Indiana, and the Google reviews are like, "Oh, this guy scammed me." I was like, "Oh, I can do this," and just like, yeah, I kind of think keep him too if he's a jerk. But the thing is, that's not what God said. He said you need to do what's right for you and Back Market to have a good relationship and not to hurt them. So anyway, I had to remind myself, as good as this would have been to have, does it help me in my eternity? It doesn't. And then it might actually be like a smudge. I mean, like a smudge on my, not, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I thought, what if I know, and bottom line is, if it's bothering you that bad, you know it's not right. You know what I'm saying? If you have to make yourself justify, if you have to list justifications and you have to come up with them, then it's not right, even if legally it is. As a child of God, we're opposite of this world and how it works. So, bummer, but that's okay. And then it was nice to have it out of my life, after I sent them off. I'm like, I'm glad that's done. And why did I even want those anyway? Especially when I looked up all the specs on this phone here, and as opposed to the specs on the iPhone, which aren't quite nice, but this one is just as nice. So it's just not the label of an iPhone. Yeah, let's get started on that one. Side, let's stick with the Koreans, right? So I'm Samsung girl. Anyway, back to our lesson, but I mean, it does have something to do with our lesson because we have to remember, in all things in our world, we don't operate under the world's rules. And God, Jesus says over and over and over again in Mark 10, he gives them instruction, and they're like, what? Yeah, you come be this big hot shot minister, wash our feet, just like that. It's different. It's so different. So if the Son of Man can, who has every reason not to be humble, can humble himself, I can humble myself for little piddly things that mean nothing in eternity's sake, right? So anyway, now when we get into, we're about to stop, but when we get into Mark 11, let's go ahead and talk about the setting today. And then we'll go in Mark 11 next week. Okay, so they're heading into Jerusalem. This is starting to be the countdown to really hard stuff, the final week, right? And so Jesus comes, it says they came nigh unto Jerusalem. You don't have to turn there. I'm just going to read a little bit. Unto Bethany and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, he sendeth forth two of his disciples. And we know he's going to tell them to go get this colt, right? So in this time, it's pretty busy in Jerusalem. And some scholars estimate that over 1 million people, PU, I bet that stunk, over 1 million people may have been in the city. And Josephus, who's fairly reliable, records that in AD 65, over 255,000 lambs were sacrificed. So that would suggest that maybe there's about 2.5 million people celebrating in Jerusalem. And there's tension in the air. There's the Romans, all this stuff. And I've always wanted to write a play called Between Between a Rock and a Hard Place, because although I don't think he was the nicest guy, a person that has my sympathy is Pontius Pilate. He was put in a really hard spot between pleasing his superiors, doesn't really want to do this to this guy. I mean, he was in a really hard spot. So there's a lot of tension going on. And some scholars say that even though they're heading towards Jerusalem, many think that the disciples were thinking, okay, now he's going to set up his little kingdom here on earth and do away with the Romans. So they're still missing the mark. Like we say, he came as a lamb this time. Now, the next time he comes, watch out. He's coming as the lion. But at this time in history, he was coming as the lamb. All right, online folk, join us next week if we don't have any cancellations. And we're going to be in Mark 11. See you later.